Wow, it is a pleasant day here at Norso BSC. The birds are chirping, the students are walking, and some are laughing. But wait, who's that? What is he doing? Come, let's take a look, guys.
Hey bro, what are you doing?
Oh, me? I'm doing a research.
For what?
This research is about species, their interaction, and the different organisms that adapts through area and time.
That's interesting.
And today, we will learn about species interaction, ecological succession, and population control.
Oh, look, there's a cow. Now you may be asking, how do species interact and how do ecosystem and communities respond in the change of global conditions or the environment conditions, and what limits the population growth?
Now let's define terms. What is species interaction? It refers to the direct or indirect interrelationship or association between different organisms, just like our food web, from the primary consumers up to the tertiary consumers until it becomes the decomposers. That's how interaction works. Now let's go back to the basics. What is species? So species is a living organism that which has the same individual aspect or the same genes that which is it deters how do species interbreed or they breed with each other. Now let's proceed to the ecological succession. It refers to the process by which the mix of species and habitats in an area changes over time. It means that different species or organisms that lives to an area, they adapt to the changes of time or the changes of their environment. Now what is population control? Population control refers to the artificially maintaining the size of any population. So it means that if a certain organism or species is endangered, or sometimes species have maximized the control of their area, they have been controlled and they are to balance and maintain the area. Now how do species interact? Now we have the 5 types of species interaction, namely number 1, competition, and then number 2, the predation, and number 3, parasitism, number 4, mutualism, 5, commensalism. These 5 types, it affects the resource use and population size of the species in an ecosystem. Now let's go first with the competition. So competition, it occurs when members of one or more species interact to use the same limited resources such as food, water, light, and space. So there are 2 types of competition. The first one is intraspecific. It means a competition within a species. So it means that the same genes compete with the same organisms compete with each other to the limited resources that they have. And the second is interspecific. So competition among different species, which means there are smaller organisms or smaller species and the bigger species compete with the limited resources that they have. But not all species compete. That's why they have competition and community structure, which they use resource partitioning, a pattern of resource use in which species reduce their use of shared resources.
So now let's go to the second part, which is called prediction. So predation is when one organism hunts or kills another organism for food. And there are 2 types of predation, which is called predator and the prey. The predator captures, kills, or consumes another individual, while the prey is the individual that is killed. Just like example, the crocodile and the human. The crocodile is the predator and the human is her prey. So in continuation, adaptation for predators. So number 1 is the rattlesnakes have acute smelling and heat sensitive teeth. So the second part is the spiders can build webs. The carnivores have sharp teeth, just like example the dog and the shark. So the last part is the tigers have sharp camouflage coat. Now let's talk about the adaptation for animal prey. Number 1 is the poisonous and warm predators with bright colors, just like example the frog. And the second part is a mimicry. A harmless species resembles a poisonous or distasteful one. The third part is the stay in herds or the runaway. The fourth part is the camouflage.
So now, let's talk about symbiosis. So, symbiosis is the close and long-term interaction between two different species. In this biological relationship, the organisms live together in a way that can benefit, harm, or have a neutral impact on either or both partners. So, there are three main types of symbiosis. The first type is parasitism. It is where one species benefits at the expense of the other. For example, ticks on a dog. Ticks or the parasite feed on the dog's blood, which benefits the tick but can harm the dog by causing irritation or transmitting diseases. The second type is mutualism. In this relationship, both species benefit from the interaction. For example, bees and flowering plants. Bees collect nectar from flower for food in return. They help pollinate plants, aiding in their reproduction. And lastly is commensalism. In this relationship, one species benefits while the other is helped or harmed. For example, between a barnacles on whales. Barnacles attach to the whale's skin and get a free ride to nutrient-rich waters, while the whale is unaffected by their presence. These types show how symbiotic relationships can vary in terms of the benefits, costs, to the organisms involved.
Now let's go to the third part, which is the parasitism. So for you to understand, let's define first. What is parasitism? Parasitism is a type of symbolic relationship wherein one organism, the parasite depends on other organism. So which means in order for the a parasite to survive, he is relying on one's organism to seep nutrients, blood, and or other kind of nutrients in order for that parasite to survive. In short, the parasite relies on the host for essential resources. So one of the best example for parasitism is here, the cow. So there's what we call the term endoparasite, which is parasite lives outside or the surface of the species. For example, a cow, there's flies or ticks that zips blood or other nutrients from the cow's skin in order to survive. So, that's what we call the endoparasitism. So let's now proceed the ectoparasitism. Ectoparasitism are the parasites that live in the internal or the inside the body of a species. So let's say for example at the worms inside the intestines and other parasites that can harm one's species in order for the parasite to survive. And the third example would be us, human being. The parasite is mosquito, and then the mosquito sips blood to our skin or from any part of our body in order to survive. But there's consequences for the human or us, the host. We, the human being, the host of that interaction. There's circumstances that we will be sick or other bacteria that will enter to our body in order to the species to survive.
Let's go to the fourth part, which is mutualism. First, let's define what is mutualism. Mutualism is a relationship between two different species where both benefit from each other. I have here two examples. First example are the acacia tree and ants. The acacia tree gives ants a home and food, while the ants protect the tree from animals and bugs that might harm it. Second is flowers and bees. Bees get a nectar or a food source from flowers. While they collect it, they help pollinate the flowers by spreading pollen. This helps the flowers reproduce by making fruits and seeds.
So let's proceed to the last part, which is commensalism. Commensalism is a type of symbiotic relationship which one species benefits, while the other species is neither helped nor harmed. For example, the cattle feeds in a wide range of prey, particularly insects, especially grasshopper, crickets, flies, and moths, as well as spiders, frogs, and earthworms. In this case, escape buffalo and other large grazing and browsing animals, and catches small creatures disturbed by mammals.
So let's proceed to the ecological succession. Ecological succession, it is refers to the gradually sequential regrowth of species in that particular area. So there are two types of ecological succession. The first one is the primary succession and the secondary succession. So talking about the primary succession, it is refers to the areas that is lifeless. It is the community development in which in that area is not previously supported in previous life.
Secondary succession is a process of ecological change that occurs in an area where a pre-existing community has been disturbed but the soil remains intact. This means the area has been altered but not completely stripped bare. Unlike primary succession, which begins on bare rock, secondary succession starts with existing soil, making it a faster and more predictable process. So there are three stages of secondary succession. Let's begin with the first stage. This is what we call the pioneer species. As you can see, the ground looks pretty bare, like it's been disturbed by a fire. But look closely. You'll notice small plants, grasses, mosses, and weeds beginning to grow. These are the pioneer species. They're tough and can survive in these rough conditions. Their main job is to stabilize the soil and start improving it. Over time, they add organic matter as they die and decompose, making the soil richer. Next, we move to the intermediate species. Now, the landscape looks a lot fuller. There are shrubs and small trees starting to grow. The soil has become healthier thanks to the pioneer plants, so more complex species can take root. Finally, we have the climax community, the most mature stage of succession. In this image, the area is now covered by tall, mature trees, creating a dense forest. The ecosystem has reached a stable and balanced state where the different plant species have found their place. The community will remain relatively unchanged unless there's another major disturbance that resets the process.
And now, let's proceed the populations. So, first, what is population? So, population is a group of interbreeding individuals of the same species. So, population distribution. So, we have a clumping, species clusters for resources, and protection for predators, and ability to hunt and packs. So, how the population can grow or to remain stable. So, we have three types here. So, number one is population size governed by, it includes births and deaths and immigration. So, number two, the second one is population change. And the last one is age structures and distribution of individuals among various groups.
So let's proceed. The different species have different reproductive patterns. Some species have many small offspring, little parental involvement. Other species reproduce later in life, have small number of offspring. New population can grow indefinitely, J-curves and S-curves. There are always limits to population's growth in nature. Environmental resistance are factors that limit population's growth and largely determines an area's carrying capacity. Carrying capacity, maximum population of a given species that a particular habitat can sustain indefinitely. Exponential growth at a fixed percentage per year, and it refers to the G-curves. Logistic growth, populations faces environmental resistance, and it refers to the S-curves.
Nature of population control. First is wildlife contraception is used to regulate population of animal in the wildlife and help reproduction. For example, vaccines are currently being used in their population. Second is when preventing reproduction fails to control populations, methods such as lethal trapping, live trapping, egg roast, site manipulation, live ammunition shooting, and chemical euthanization are used to maintain population. Third is humans are not exempted from nature population controls. Last is COVID-19 current global pandemic. let's proceed to three big ideas. First is certain interaction among species. First is affect their use of resources and their population size. Second is changes in environmental condition. Cause communication and ecosystem to gradually alter their species composition and population size. The last one is there are always limits to population growth in nature.
Now that you have learned much about species interaction, ecological succession, and population control. Again, till next time.
We must protect our environment. Thank you for watching!